Hey, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Lost Like Mike. I am your host, Mike Gonzalez, hanging out. Thanks for dropping by. Appreciate the comments. Thank you for messaging me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. I'm still nursing a throat issue, so I apologize if my voice is a little weird. I know the audio in the last one seemed like I was struggling a bit, especially towards the end, but I'm scheduling a specialist, a visit with a specialist here in the next couple weeks, so I should be getting to the bottom of what's going on. Every singer or every, you don't realize how important your voice is to your persona or to your character, to who you are as a person. Raising my daughter, she's a lot like me in a lot of different ways. She has her sense of humor like built into everything that she's doing, but one of the reasons, and I think that I'm learning so much about myself through raising her and seeing kind of her coping mechanisms, how she handles different things. Like, I think that she compensates for the way she's treated because of, for example, her loud voice, which she got from me. She deals with it with a sense of humor, or with sort of doubling down and sort of playing into the fact that she has this uncontrollably loud voice, and she tries, and I see myself in her in doing that, where it takes everything that she has in her being to control her volume in certain situations, like in school. And I was much the same way, where I often didn't know how to talk in social situations for fear that I was gonna lose control of that, and I was going to be judged by it. You know what I mean? And because of that, in my home situation or in comfortable situations, my voice was just loud and uncontrollable, just unhinged, because sort of like it was like the pendulum just swinging back the opposite direction, And I see that in her, where she gets really high marks in school for being quiet or like being controlled, but when she's with her friends or when she's on recess or in certain situations, she's just, incredibly, loud. And there are differences, like she's in the third grade and she's very popular with her friends and things. I was very awkward. But when she comes home, she wants to just be loud and doesn't want to think about it, doesn't want to, doesn't want to be stifled. She wants to just let it rip, I understand it anyway. Sometimes when she and I are just being ourselves, and her mom or Julie comes in and just like, yo, can y'all just keep it down? Or like, I've got a headache or whatever. And it's so difficult because we just want to, we're at home. We want to be in a situation where we can, just not be ourselves. It's not the right word for it, but not be so super overly like conscious of the obnoxiously loud voices that we have. I don't knock it. But anyway, yeah, so normally I'd be a lot louder. I feel like I'm being very timid, and it communicates into like the way that it sounds as far as my approach to the topics that I may bring up or whatever. It may sound like questionable confidence, but it's really not that at all. It's just whatever's going on with my throat. But yeah, thanks for dropping by. Thanks for coming by, visiting. I've been checking the numbers. It's been, there's been a few people come by, and so I know somebody's listening out there. So that's good. I hope that you're finding, this. I often wonder how far people listen into the episodes, or if they just skim, which I think would be my favorite way for people to listen to it. If as long as they're touching different parts of the episode, right? Because sometimes I feel like I get a groove later on in the show, and sometimes you hit the topics early. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna lie, but anyway, I'd like to think that some of the stories towards the ends of the episode are being heard by somebody. But anyway, there's a lot of commotion going on outside. I don't know what's happening, but so I need to go back and listen to some of the older episodes. I'm getting to that point where I'm forgetting whether I had discussed certain things in the show. One example, I was driving home. No, actually, I was driving to a show, and up ahead I saw what looked like something just burst in up ahead, and I was on the far left lane, so my instinct said I'm going to go into the middle lane. I think I might have talked about this, but I'm obviously not resolved. It's not out of my system. So if you've heard this story, I apologize, but I'm going to reiterate it anyway. I see things in the middle of the highway. I see what appears to be pieces of a vehicle. But I'm thinking, I don't want to slow down. I don't want to, I don't want to cause an accident. Should I roll over it? Should I run over these items and keep going? And I don't have the best vision. Like, I'm nearsighted with astigmatism, and I wasn't wearing glasses, of course. And as I'm getting closer, I realize that it's a person laying in the middle of the highway, and all this is happening really quick because your mind process is different. I remember because I was drinking a fountain drink, like with a lid and a straw, and all of a sudden I'm doing all these equations in my mind. I decide that I'm going to turn my vehicle to block the lane where the person is, instead of getting out of the lane, so that the guy behind me wouldn't, as I'm pulling out of the lane, run the person over. So and I slam on my brakes, and I'm parked, and then I see somebody up ahead get off their car and go over to this person. This was a motorcyclist, and they had a helmet on, and the long jacket and pants or whatnot, you know what I mean? So the person was holding on to this person, and I could sort of get the sense of what the person was saying, and the person was mouthing, "Are you okay?" And the the motorcyclist was like nodding their head under the helmet. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna dip, because I didn't see the actual accident, so I have no contribution to the situation other than not, you're welcome for me not running you over. I mean, that's probably the extent of it. But it turned out that this person on this motorcycle, I had seen them earlier pass me by, and the reason why I remember that is because I remember thinking, my son needs tires, and I need tires, and I bet you if you had a motorcycle, you'd have to like pay attention to things like that a little bit more. It's the stupidest thought, but I remember thinking when he went by, I was thinking, you can't really let your tires go bald when you're in a motorcycle, right? Because if one blows out, then bad things, chaos would ensue or whatever. And I remember thinking that, and then so what ended up happening was that this guy on the motorcycle attempted, and his bobbing and weaving, going through vehicles, had decided that they were going to go onto the shoulder on the far left of the highway. And when they did, they ran into a construction median, like one of those, they look like upside down solo cups that are, filled with sand and whatnot. And there just was this random one on the side of the highway, on the shoulder of the highway, that this person riding a motorcycle did not consider in their bobbing and weaving, because for all the rest of the shoulder was just empty for like miles. And so they just ran and then went to the side and poof, and that's what I saw, was the sand and bike parts explode into the air. And so but it was like a bit of a shock, you know what I mean? Thinking that, well, I thought this was like a fender or like a piece of metal like on the road, and I was completely gonna run it over, because of the traffic on either side, and not knowing how to stop fast enough, you know what I mean, or like to dodge the oncoming traffic. So yeah, and then I looked to my right in my and at some point in all of this, I just set my fountain drink in the middle of the passenger seat. Like, I don't know how it stayed up, but it was sitting there against the backrest of the passenger seat. Because at some point I thought, well, you're gonna need both hands. So instead of putting it in the multitude of cup holders that I have in my SUV, I decided to put it in the middle of the seat. It was insanity. But yeah, that happened a couple weeks ago, and I told the story at work and to my son at one point or another. And because of that, I don't think that I said it on the podcast. If I did, it's okay, because it's still weighing on my mind, a few weeks later. And if I did tell that story, I probably also told the story of somebody. It was the middle of the night, and somebody stepping out in front of a vehicle on purpose. And it was very cinematic, because they took like one step, two step, and then turned towards the car. It was to be hit. Like, it was an obvious, attempted suicide, because they just walked directly into the lane of the vehicle and then just turned and faced the vehicle. And I remember seeing a shoe fly, and that was all I could think about for the next mile. Was, well, not only what the hell did I just see, but who doesn't tie their shoelaces? I don't. Anyway, it sounds so stupid, but and there was a lot going on, and you might say to yourself, well, why didn't you pull over? But the vehicle that I remember there was something having to do with like I watched people pull over, and one of them was like a city vehicle, and I knew that, everything was going to be, and again, I contribute nothing because I witnessed the person walk out and turn, but I'm nearsighted with astigmatism. For all I know, they dropped their, important item. I don't know what, I'm not a viable witness. I'm like the most like, what did you see? I don't know. It was like I saw a shoe fly. You know what I mean? If I could render aid, that's a different thing. Like if it was like I've pulled over. Oh, that was an interesting one. I remember I was having dreams about getting into an auto accident. And then it was maybe weeks later. It was not in any sort of time frame that would have justified this thought, but I was having a deja vu, and I was on this highway, and I was thinking, like, this is so reminiscent of the dreams that I was having of getting into an auto accident. And so I just became like hyper vigilant in this moment, and I started looking around, like, and maybe a few minutes later, it was a teen driver, and it was really late at night, and they were just they fell asleep at the wheel and spun out and hit the wall. Not to say that they would have hit me, but I was, like I said, I saw it, the person spinning, getting ready to spin out, and brake, and hit the brakes, and they just spun out and wiped out, like, up ahead, and I watched that. And then so I got off the car and went over, and it was this young lady, and I was like, dude, are you all right? And she's like, she was completely coherent and wide awake at this point, but she was like, I just was sleepy and I just effed up, you know what I mean? Like, but when it all seems like it's connected, and perhaps it is, and without sounding too overly like oogity boogity about it, you know what I mean? I just it's like that whole Matrix thing with the Oracle, like perhaps one had nothing to do with the other, but you're going to ask yourself, like, had I maybe would have been up right next to them, maybe I would have honked or something, maybe I would have woken the person up before they spun out and whipped into the wall. Maybe 100 different things could have happened. Like, for example, like the other day, and this is not the same thing, but I was driving home from work, and I downloaded this app, which I'm not going to sit here and advertise, but I'm just saying, I downloaded this app to like find the best routes to get home, and it said exit in 1 mile, right, or something like that, and I wasn't paying attention to the, like, has it been a mile? And there was and I exited. And it's weird because, and it doesn't make sense to me, because it's where I live. If you're on a major highway, this was on a parkway, so it's like different. But most major highways, it's a mile between every exit, or a couple miles, but you know what I mean? But this one had like an auxiliary exit that did this like sort of a turn into like this area, and then the actual exit to the highway is like a half a mile up from that. I mean, it's not like, it doesn't seem like a legitimate amount of space between exits. Anyway, so I messed up, I exited, and then it's like rerouting and like take this turn or whatever. And I was like, cool, okay, fine, whatever. And it actually in my mind felt faster. I felt like I went on this weird mini journey, and then it put me But I was like, obviously it was wrong because it wasn't what was asked to happen. So anyway, flash forward to a couple days later. I'm feeling that, it's every time there's inclement weather, you think it's going to affect the traffic, right? So anyway, I said, okay, well, here we go. Don't forget, don't exit that first little area. We're going to go an extra half a mile to the proper exit, right? But then I looked ahead and there was like traffic all the way to that exit. So I just went ahead and I said, well, I'm just going to take this little exit and take a chance. And sure enough, I whipped around, did my little back road, and then it put me out on the feeder road to the highway. Like everybody else was still stuck in traffic. And so my thoughts were that if I hadn't messed up and put myself on this back road or whatever, I would never have known that it was a shortcut, right? That's the long and the short of that story. Like, and if that blew anybody's mind, I'm sure it's like, everybody was like, that's stupid story. But anyway, that just happened today, so it was fresh on my mind. Ever since that whole situations with the heavy construction traffic, I'm warped. I know I told that story, but in it, I'd never seen that in my life where traffic was like a parking lot and nobody moved for an hour straight. Not 1 inch. Nobody moved. And it wasn't until people started breaking the law and like doing U-turns on the highway, like on the empty lanes and going out of, open areas off, like down the hill of the highway, like out of a hole in the highway wall. I mean, ridiculous. And I watched that for several days, never going down in that again, but it was just insane. But anyway, so it just kind of messed with my head a little bit. I don't like, if I can prevent it, I'll avoid traffic at all costs. Like that kind of traffic just freaks me out, or like just frustrates the hell out of me. Oh yeah. So I don't know if it was on some kind of, it was probably like on a TikTok or something, or like a social feed. I saw this guy was talking about, like self-improvement, right? And so he starts saying that, and it was an older man. He was talking about recruiting somebody, like prospects that he would work with. It was right. And I always try to look at, whenever I listen to somebody, I try to extrapolate whatever positive or beneficial things that they might say. And for that reason, I'll listen with a grain of salt to anything anybody has to say, because you never know where the nuggets are going to be, like the positives. Also, on a side note and completely unrelated, Wendy's needs to stop calling their chicken nuggets nugs. It's the worst advertising campaign that I've ever seen. I heard it first when they were talking. They've got these funny guys that do their commercials, and one of the guys says, with a side of nugs. And I was like, ugh, that sounds stupid. But now they have a whole campaign about like their chicken nuggets, and they're in dipping sauce, like they're kind of doing like boneless wings kind of, but they're chicken nuggets, and they just poured the sauce on top of the nuggets instead of whatever. And this might be the stupidest sidetrack ever, but I just heard the commercial today, and it was like, get your saucy nugs, or whatever stupid name they gave them, but they call them nugs. And I just want to punch somebody in the throat every time I hear it. I never will eat another chicken nugget again. So help me God, if they would just stop calling it that. But I digress. Back to what I was saying. I mean, really, right? You want to die on that hill? Like, that's what's important to me right now? Stupid. What was I talking about? Why would I be talking about chicken nuggets? Crap. I shouldn't have changed subjects. Anyway, so I don't know why that even was a thing, but so the guy was talking about like recruiting somebody or hiring somebody. Oh, nuggets of truth. Like, yeah. So, chicken nuggets. No, you never know where these pearls of wisdom, or whatever you want to call them, these, are going to come from. And sometimes it's like Confucius says, it's like the opposite of what the person says is the lesson. So they might say something and you're like, yeah, that's totally wrong. But it takes you to what's right. So he was saying that you need to be able to tell this person, or whomever, yourself included, that, and if you want to play at home, you sure can, because I'm in the middle of doing this myself. I just keep leaving it at work like an idiot. Like I have it on this notepad that I've been working on. But anyway, the idea is that you should be able to write down, say, 10 goals that you have in your life, 10 things that you want to improve on, 10 things that you want to accomplish, 10 subjects that are involved in your life that are areas of improvement, or areas that you would like to see furthered, aspects of your career, relationships that you have that you want to improve on, whatever it is, that you should be able to list out 10 things. And you should be able to write any one of those 10 things and say, what are 10 steps? I don't know what the significance of 10 is. It's not like numerology. It's just like a round number. But he said you should be able to write 10 steps. 10 steps to get you further towards that goal, improve your position within that dynamic, whatever it is. And then you should be able to take that list and subsequently organize it into a schedule. Like, okay, what of these 10 steps can I do tomorrow? Can I do today to get myself closer to that goal? And his point was, if you can't articulate your vision, then you have to reapproach your goals. You have to like reevaluate how important they are to you. If you know what I'm saying? Because if it's important to you, then you should be able to at least acknowledge that, well, this is what I want to have. I guess what would be an example? Like I had an example of wanting to, let's say, get healthy, for example. And then you would say, what are 10 things that you could do to get healthy? Well, I can approach my diet. I can approach my cardio, my weightlifting. I can, whatever, we're spitballing. This is just examples. But, and then what I found was that the underlying theme of everything was scheduling. Because you would say, I want to get better at my instrument. I want to write a book. I want to improve my podcast, whatever it is. It was about scheduling time for X, Y, or Z, scheduling practice time, lessons, everything seems to be a theme of putting a time frame on it. I talked about and then it also makes you kind of figure out what's important and what's not important. I was talking on the lists. I listed out in home improvements, because I feel like I'm all over the place, and as well as my wife, we're all over the place with regard to, we didn't buy a brand new house, right? We've lived here for, I guess, maybe 7 years now. I don't even know how many years we've been in this, maybe 8 years, maybe more. But point is, there's definitely room for improvements. There's areas that need to be addressed, and for that reason, but when I was writing it down and saying, okay, well, this is one of the things that I'm working on, home improvement, you start listing out these different items, and all of a sudden it's like, well, you need to prioritize one over another. Obviously there's budget constraints and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, long before you can talk about wanting to build a studio out back, right? A music studio, or you could do I could set up a vocal booth that I could, do a podcast room where I could, set up the lighting and leave it there and just, turn it on and off and have a better backdrop than this cow. I fought to get this cow, by the way, because in the first episodes I had a giraffe, and apparently that was everybody got really dramatic about me, stealing their masterpiece giraffe painting that supposed to go in my baby's playroom. But anyway, so if ever somebody asks you why does, nobody's ever going to ask you, but if you're ever curious as to why I have a painting of a cow next to me, and I have a painting of a giraffe, or what I used to have a painting of different things like a cardinal or whatever that I did with my daughter. The reason why it was initially when I did a podcast, a friend of mine watched it, who had never heard a podcast before, had never seen a podcast. And admittedly, mine's not a normal podcast by any stretch of the terms. It's one of the things that I'm trying to sort out is, there's no format necessarily in terms of I don't do pop culture references and although I was going to talk about something that I watched today, but I haven't got into it. But I don't normally I have in the past talked about movies or TV shows that I watch that I'm impacted by, new music that I've listened to, but it's not it's not hey guys, it's time for the what's new in the world of, I don't know, movies section of the show. You know what I mean? So anyway, he listened to the show and he's like, man, it's and I used to have just a black backdrop of soundproofing behind me. And he was like, it's really I don't know, it bums me out, man. It's kind of depressing because it's just all black behind you, and and you're just sitting there talking about your mental problems or something. And I was like, okay, good notes. Thank you for sharing. So the next week I put up colorful things and a painting of a giraffe, and that's why I always have some kind of color. Yeah. And you may be listening to this podcast on one of the different platforms, Spotify, what have you, and have no idea what I'm talking about, and probably are saying to yourself, what was this painting of a cow. Excuse me. That he's talking about. Anyway, it's not worth researching, friend. It's just I'm just talking about a cow painting is my backdrop. But anyway, it's just it makes you prioritize or like rationalize why you're choosing to put one thing in front of another. And I'm sure that it develops into further difficulty, because once you establish all these lists and have all these different topics that you need to take steps into achieving, that you're going to need to schedule them, and you'll have to prioritize even within that, even within those lists. It becomes a whole. It puts everything in perspective, because you have to have time for exercise, and you have to have time for the family, time for to spend with your daughter, time to write music and to practice music, and the list goes on and on. And so, vegging out watching TV programs, or like playing Fortnite or certain other pastimes sort of seem like, although your relaxation time and sleep and rest and all that are all important too. Don't want to burn the candle or burn it. What is it? Burn it at both ends. What are you burning? Right? I guess it's that phrase came from burning what? I don't know what the proverbial "it that we're burning" is in that sentence. I'll have to research that. I'll talk about it next week. I don't know what burning it at both ends. Maybe it's a candle. Whatever. So my daughter went to the movies recently. She went in and saw that John, I wrote his name down. I know I did. Krasinski? Is that it? Krasinski? Oh, bother. The guy from The Quiet Place and The Office. Anyway, Krasinski? If I say it any other way, it's going to get worse. So I'm just going to leave it at that. But anyway, she went and saw the movie If at the theater with my wife. I didn't get to go as normal. That's pretty much par for the course when it comes to their adventures. I mean, they've been going to everything. They go to the zoo. They go to theme parks, water parks, to movies, to roller skating. I mean, they're living their best life. They're always like posting these different pictures of these random things that they're doing every day, and they're like, "This is what we did this week," and then they show pictures. And I always want to like follow up with like me sitting in my office chair, like just typing on a computer, working on whatever it is that I'm working on. You know what I mean? I'm just being silly, but the point being that she went to go see this movie, and my daughter, my daughter, she's very emotional. She's very in tune. Like, she's empathetic. She can't make it through most movies without like feeling super tied into the movie. Like, I remember I tried to take her to go see a movie, and it was a playful kids movie, I thought. But the dog got kidnapped or something happened, and she just couldn't watch the rest of the movie. She was just emotionally like devastated, like, what's happening? It was Clifford.
And the dog almost got hit in the street, and she was done.
Right. But it was a giant red dog.
Yes.
So already, by its premise, it's not real.
And it was the beginning of the movie, so I wasn't going to get hit by a car.
Yeah. No, I know. But as an example, and she cried 3 times in Garfield.
Yes, but that was a traumatic movie for children.
Was it because it was voiced by Christopher Pratt? What is it? It make her sad?
And her friend,
that they replaced Bill Murray
was crying the next couple of days about Garfield.
What? I don't want to know, Because this is the point, okay? I told my wife I cannot watch this movie if it's sad. Because I'm going to be watching it on breaks at work or like when I'm driving to work.
Cry one time, so it was safe for you.
And she says it was safe. Let me tell you, if I feel like maybe I'm in an emotionally raw position and I don't know why, and I can't tell you, like I can't explain it. But I felt like this woman, my wife, set me up to watch this movie.
It was a good movie.
Yeah, but okay, so the movie begins with a montage of the kid.
Tell them about the movie if they haven't watched it.
I'm giving a spoiler the first 5 minutes of the movie. Can I do that?
No, that's rude. I didn't say.
I said spoiler. First 5 minutes of the movie. Is that going to ruin it? I don't think so. They already released the movie on Prime, so you could go watch it if you wanted to.
You gather from the beginning of the movie about the mom, but that's
okay.
The extent of it.
That's what she said. Did you hear what she said? You gather from the beginning of the movie about the mom, but that's about it.
I think I said that she.
No, there was look. Spoiler alert. Most of y'all fools don't even get this far in the podcast anyway, so I'm not even going to trip. Spoiler alert. Fast forward if you don't want to hear about the first 5 minutes of the movie. Like that's going to ruin anything.
Yeah.
It's a montage of the young daughter being all creative and making like paintings and stuff while you watch the mom, and so you're getting attached to the mom. And then they show like 3 clips of her having cancer and then dying. Right? In this first 5 minutes. And my daughter's very artistic. She likes to draw. She likes to paint. So I'm like already like, oh, look, it's my daughter. She's making creative things and being imaginative. And then the person's dying. They're dead. And so then I'm like driving to work going, you sons of bitches. And I'm crying already. I'm like wiping my eyes like, I got to clock in. I got to walk by people.
But she keeps wanting to be grown because of what happened in her life, but she was still little.
Hey, I only told them 5 minutes of spoilers. Don't give them the whole pinche movie. You can't tell them the whole thing.
Movie.
Anyway, so the movie has to do with imaginary friends and people forgetting their imaginary friends because they grew up and their lives were hard. And the whole time I'm thinking, I can't even remember having an imaginary friend. I just feel like there's, one trauma after another. And this is what's happening in my mind. So then, is it, okay, so I'm like, just trying to watch this movie on my lunch break, and I'm like, blubbering. I'm not even really crying, but I'm like cursing. And I messaged her and I was like, you booger, like this was not cool. Like you don't set me up for this, I'm like blowing my nose, like all of a sudden.
It was a good movie.
It was a great movie. And I'm telling you, this guy, John Krasinski, I hope that's how you say his name, because it's such a failure on my part. I looked at the thing and I read it on IMDb like 10 times because I knew I was going to talk about him and I didn't want to F his name up. So I practiced, and here I am in the podcast, and already that fast I forgot how to say his name. So anyway, I hope I'm saying it right, but he writes these things. He wrote The Quiet Place. He wrote this one, and he
directed this.
He directed this one, and he was in it.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then here's the thing. And then at the end, they show a picture of the bear, and they said, in loving memory of Louis Gossett Jr.
Oh, I didn't see that.
San Antonio, Texas. I'm telling you, I did not see that coming. Louis Gossett Jr., I didn't even know he passed away. He was the bear. Oh, forget about it. I was like, all kind of verklempt. But she left. Anyway, it's a good movie. You should watch it with your family, with your kids. If you don't have kids, you should just watch it because it's interesting. Like it's an interesting take on imaginary friends and the creativity we lose as we get older or as we gain obligations in our lives, and and perhaps it's never too late to get back in touch with your creative side or your imaginative side. And so maybe watching that movie as you're working in a cubicle and on your breaks from working in a cubicle kind of triggers different emotional responses than if you're, you know, just getting back from painting pictures and being that kid, you know what I'm saying? And maybe that's why it hit me a little different than it hit everybody else. Maybe that's the psychological dime store psychology of the day. Anyway, this was an interesting episode, and I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to overindulge in all this. So take care of yourselves. I will see you next week. And message me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. I like responding to those things and to knowing what you're going through as well. All right? Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace.